So while they're coming up, I think one of the things that we wanted to explore today was, this transition and journey you're on that we've been talking about, uh, could lead you from essentially a staff career position in engineering to leadership, putting you in place of being a department manager, being a project leader, being a CEO, whatever your career path might take. So we have some experienced panelists. So they're going to take us through their journeys real quick, to their leadership positions. And, like my earlier panel, this is great because we have two very diverse pathways to really draw some examples from. So let me just let these guys introduce themselves, and we'll start with the hard questions as soon as they're done.
Great, thanks, Ivy. So my name is Josh Lovekamp. I graduated from Clemson with my master's and PhD, leaving here in '05. I was in the Department of Bioengineering. I quickly took a role at W.O. Gore, Gore Medical in Arizona. So relocated my wife and I to Flagstaff, Arizona when I left here, and then have been with Gore since for the past 20 years. So a little bit unique relative to a lot of the other people on the panels today, or just in general, probably in terms of my tenure with a single company. But I've had the luxury of, being able to work in a lot of different roles within Gore and within different companies within Gore, as well as just building, like you all are doing, a network of connections within the company that has allowed me the opportunity to contribute in a lot of different ways over those years. I currently lead our thoracic aortic business, so in the vascular space. So all the products for the aneurysms and dissections of your, hopefully not your, but someone's thoracic aorta. That's sort of the product space that I work in.
Great. Yep. And Ivy definitely said it correctly. We're very different. So I've only been in this executive position or leading a startup for the last few years. So my journey kind of started in senior design here in bioengineering. I got my BS in 2024, and now I'm currently still pursuing my Master's of Science as well in the bioengineering department. But I'm here to mostly talk about the startup that was spun out of senior design. And the last few years, we've been focused on, I've been focused on leading my team into funding, participating in different startup competitions, and honestly understanding, is there a value in the product that we've developed? A lot of times when you develop a product in these senior design classes, sometimes they're forgotten or done after graduating, but we decided to keep going, and that's what I hope to talk about today.
Great. So we've spanned 2 years to 2 decades, and we've got some really great opportunities to really harness some learnings. So if we sit down and think and look back at your journeys, regardless of the projects themselves or technology themselves, what are some of the learnings that you took away going from your staff position to a leadership position? So maybe let's start with Josh on that one.
So I think, we all have good degrees. We all have, different ways that we're intelligent. We are good individual contributors, I guess I would say in general. And I think that's where you all get your start is figuring out what role you serve as a contributor to a team. And then, as you develop in your career and you become, say, a leader and you're leading other people, your role as an individual contributor means less and less in terms of the value you uniquely bring to some deliverable at the end of the day. But that doesn't mean that you are obviously, though, one of the more important people on the team, in the sense that your role is now has shifted to, leading the direction of the team, setting the strategy, understanding what your vision is for the business or for the team. And so I think for me personally, in terms of one of the biggest transitions has been to kind of set my own expectations a little bit in terms of, what I think might be the right decision to the side, and allow the people that are on my team to make decisions based on the knowledge that they have. Because I personally have opinions. I have my own biases and information, but you want the people on your team to sort of be um, uh, self-sufficient, have the autonomy to be able to make decisions, feel empowered. And so those things are without a good leader, or without the ability to do that, teams can oftentimes, or individual contributors on teams can oftentimes feel a little bit less than motivated. And so you really have to kind of set your ego aside a little bit and understand that your role and all the education maybe that you got to that point is a little bit, there for a different reason. And your role has definitely changed.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm still definitely learning every single day of how to transition from that earlier position to this new, more executive position and leading my team into what we believe, what we're really passionate in and believe in. Specifically, I think I want to talk more about like the student experience with that. So usually when it was mentioned in some of the earlier discussions where sometimes in a team, there's not an equal split of contribution. There's not always the same goals. Sometimes people are in there just to get a good grade, and that's totally okay. Some people just want to do that, but then also understanding where you're going after that, right? So once you get out of school, why are you still pursuing something, right? It's the passion. So also as someone that's leading the team, you need to understand what your team's strengths and weaknesses are and understanding the balance between that as well. I'm not going to be pushing my team to be working all Friday night, especially since we're not officially a company yet and we're all working on our own personal time and funds. Understanding the balance between that and also understanding why you're there is, I think, part of a reason that I've been able to lead the team in a very good direction and reminding ourselves why we're actually involved in this and what we're doing this for.
So, one of the things is from my leadership journey, it's almost if you sit down and think you're the smartest person in the room, you need to reassess your team, or you need to reassess your self-evaluations, because you really need some humility to be in the leadership role. And when you sit down and you think about, you're coming into, especially as a broad-based management role, you're going to be leading people that were not in your technical education. You have very different backgrounds. You have a lot of things that's out of your comfort zone. So you have to build a team that is going to not be full of yes responses. They need to have that challenge and healthy debate. And you have to, as a leader, set up the culture to actually have that debate. So with that kind of in mind, I want to kind of go back to Calvin for a second and say, okay, you're in this new position, getting a new company with a technical degree. How do you develop your business acumen to say, I'm ready to go do this and ready to charge off and do your pitches and build all this that you need to do to have a successful startup? What do you do? How do you go about and do that?
It's about being a sponge, in my opinion, absorbing as much as you can. Obviously, in our curriculums at the university level, we have specific presentations that we have to do. We have teams that we have to form and work on specific projects. But once you get out of that academic ecosystem, it's about understanding who you can reach out to, what you can reach out to. As we've mentioned, there's obviously a lot of organizations here in South Carolina that are being developed or already developed to help support you, and being able to reach out and understand that sometimes just being an active listener as well. Like even attending this symposium here is an opportunity to learn from others to have followed the same pathway that you want to and learn as much as you can.
I think it's, it's imperative. I mean, I like the word sponge because you have to be a lifetime learner, lifelong learner. You can't sit down and expect that you can continue to lead on the principles that you learned 10 years ago. The world changes, technology changes, people change, you change. So you have to continue to grow. You have to continue to take those lifelong lessons and impart them on your team, but also practice essentially what you preach. But sometimes if you're in a big company, and you get a cross-functional leadership job, that's not always easy to do. So you have to figure out diplomacy at a very high level. So I'm going to look at Josh here, who's talks about his journey growing through Gore. And how do you take on a leadership role when maybe you don't have 100% control across the things that you actually need to get done to see your projects move forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think Gore is maybe a little bit unique in that regard, in the sense that, and there's been books written about it over the years about our corporate culture and the sort of the flat organization, which is still generally true today, even though we've become a much larger company. And I think, which means basically that in general, there's not a lot of authority that you have. Even though I lead a group of people and I'm responsible for a portfolio of products, I can't just walk into a meeting and say, this is what we're going to do, and then just walk out and everybody just knows their marching orders. I have to be able to influence what that choice is. And if I have a strong opinion, I have to come with data, or I have to come with some information that's going to help move the needle and move everyone else in that same direction. And irrespective of whether or not your company culture is the same as ours, or you have a sort of a hierarchical authoritarian, regime, if you want people to follow your lead, you're going to need to be able to influence that and have them follow you, not because they're fearful for their job, but because they believe that that's the right thing to do. And so that, ultimately that as a leader is what you're called to do, is to have people follow you. And typically that means, being willing to take a leap yourself in some cases, and put your neck out on the line a little bit occasionally. But then also, bringing again the evidence and the data that you need to be able to, convince people that you may not know all the answers, but these are the risks we're going to take together, and just take the first step.
So there's a word that could be like a divining rod, but it's risk. So if you sit down and you think about, big companies and their risk aversion or appetite for risk, how do you balance risk in some of your decisions as a team leader and as an executive?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, generally speaking, small companies are more tolerant of risk, and big companies are less tolerant of risk. Big companies have a lot more to lose, which in some cases gives small companies an edge, because they are able to, take those risks and bet big, and maybe they lose big, but maybe they win big. Big companies, on the other hand, like I said, are a little bit more generally risk averse. But that doesn't mean we don't take risks, or that we're not willing to bet big. But you have to do it in kind of measured ways, and have, sort of milestones set up on how you're going to measure that risk, how you're going to make sure that you're continuing to move in the right direction, and know what your assumptions are based on those risks, and whether or not, you should be checking those assumptions and making sure that that's still congruent with the data or the information that you're gathering along the way. So, don't just take a choice and make a risk and then close your eyes and start driving in the direction you thought was the road. You have to kind of keep making sure that you're heading the right direction.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, and as you continue to look for jobs and you talk to some of the bigger companies, you're going to hear programs like leadership development programs. These are 2-year rotational programs that are going to get you exposed to all certain aspects or functions in these big companies. So you'll get a chance to really open your eyes and really start networking across these companies. But what is really important, and I think, Josh touched on it here, is those companies, you have to live with the decisions you make. As a leader, you can't make decisions and then move on to the next job and let other people execute it, success or fail, and you don't suffer the consequences or celebrate the wins. So as a leader, that's one of the things that I think really builds some of the thick skin and character over time, but also that experience helps make you a better decision maker or better leader along the way. So make sure when you get into a program or get into a job or do things, give it the opportunity to go its full path. Make the decisions and live with the decisions and outcomes, because that will teach you, do I need to change fast, or do I need to see it proceed and move on to success? And I think that's one of the things that Josh is talking about. So with that kind of in mind, now we'll go back to Calvin and say, okay, how do you in this new role think about, the risk and what you're doing, and how has that played out in a very truncated time in your development as a leader?
Yeah, so I'm still building that tough skin from leadership as well. Still learning every day, but I want to just say something directly to the students. If you are going to take a risk, I would say now is the best time. Part of risks is learning, right, from those risks. So like mentioned previously by many other panelists as well, you learn from your mistakes. And now, at least the way I see it, is now is the time to take risks, try the different things that you are passionate about, explore that field, go to that field, start a company, right? Because it's always easy to look at someone else and be like, oh, I don't know how they started that. But those people went through the exact same situation, the same pathway that you would be going through right now. They took the exact same risks. Obviously, there's different environments and situations around that, but understanding that it's okay to fail when you take a risk, because then you learn from your mistakes and you can apply that to your next risk, right? And being able to also mitigate those risks is important as well. I'm not going to go out and spend $1 million on my credit card tomorrow on the company, but also understanding that little risks is important and helps build that character that you have, and then further transitions into industry as well. I hope that you can transfer those skills when you're managing a very interdisciplinary team as well.
All right, so keep that microphone. So what we're going to do, so you've both mentioned teams, right? And I think you heard, Dr. Thomas this morning say, it takes a village, right? And innovation, we all know, is not an individual sport, it's a team sport. So think about building this company and building this team together out of the student team that you started with. So what are some of the skills, the things, the traits that you're looking at as you continue to build the team for a business versus building your team as a project?
Yeah, so there's definitely a difference, and there's similarities there as well. A big challenge as transitioning from a project in academia or in that university level and transitioning it to more industry. There's definitely a difference in the sense that in academia, sometimes you're put on the team. You don't always choose the members, and that's okay. You have to work with what you have. But sometimes you do have the opportunity to build that team. And the skills that you're looking for, at least that I'm looking for in my team, is, are we driven by the same factors? Are we pushing towards the same goals? It might be through different ways, it might be through different skills, but is the end goal the same for both? Or for both, like I only have one other member right now that we're working with, but for the team that you have, right? We started with 5 members originally, then slowly went down to 2 because 3 went to medical school, and that's not something that I'll be like, oh, do not pursue your dreams, right? But understanding that everyone has their own passion and their own dreams is something you used to craft in your own team. So as I'm moving forward, now I'm looking for people that can help me learn the more business aspect of med tech device. And in senior design, we mostly learn a little bit more on the technical side, but we still do get involved to that business aspect. But looking for individuals with those skills that are passionate, looking for the same goal, and aren't afraid to take risks as well. Because if you can't, it's okay to disagree with your team members, but if you can't agree on main steps in the path, then that could lead to a lot of feuds between you and possibly lead to the startup not launching.
Josh, from your perspective, if you listen to what Calvin's saying, how do you have to do this multiple times over your career. So how do you assess skill sets? How do you assess what you need every time to build new teams, hire new people, bring these new innovations to market when obviously you're focused on a narrow part of the overall operations of the team? You've got to have your influence. So what do you focus on? What are your skill sets? How do you build trust across people that don't report to you directly? You know, this is a tough balancing act.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, a lot of it is, you know, again, through influence, through understanding what motivates people. You know, as a leader, I think you know, when you're an engineer, you know, you focus on the technical stuff, and when you're a leader, you're a little bit more of a psychologist probably in terms of trying to understand what makes people tick. But I think generally speaking, you know, it's great if you can have a team comprised of individuals that are all doing things that they feel, number one, working towards a goal that they feel passionate about, which is, you know, ideally if they're all working for your company and in your business, they all have some interest in, you know, that disease space or that product line and the technology. But then you're also hopefully contributing to the goal on, you know, in a way that's, you know, within your sweet spot, I guess we would call it, in the sense that it's, you know, something that you have skills that are centered around, something that you have interest in, and then something that the business obviously finds valuable in terms of moving the project forward. And so, you know, if you're in your sweet spot, and then, you know, I think that's, you know, where you get the most out of people and the business gets the most out of you with respect to, you know, making progress, and, you know, the biggest bang for our buck with regards to what we're, you know, paying you as your salary and other forms of compensation. So, yeah, I think, you know, making sure you understand what people are, how they're motivated and what they're looking to gain out of the commitment.
Good. So we've got about 7 or 8 minutes left. Just before I go into my last questions, I want to open it up to the audience just to see if you all have any questions with regards on the journey from engineer to leader or staff to leader.
So my question is like, what kind of medical device did you guys do for your senior design? And like, what was the biggest challenge that you guys faced?
Yes, so we worked specifically with a AKI monitoring device, specifically to diagnose AKI within hours rather than days. And starting off in academia, so the biggest challenge is not really knowing the future of the product. When you first start off, it's almost just like a grade and you just have to do it. And that kind of involves understanding, it could also be your team as well. That could be one of the biggest challenges as well. But moving forward, or let me explain exactly why that's a challenge, but not knowing the future, when you're in industry and working for, you have a team and you have key opinion leaders, people that you are trying to, you are reporting to, you have specific goals and things that you need to do similar to curriculum, but it's almost not known what you're going for in the academia class until later in the semester, later in the end, when you've already built the product, you have the customers that you think you are applying the product towards, but it's also not known, which is also kind of transitioning challenge from academia then to industry, is then once you have this product, is then further understanding, is it actually needed? Yeah, in the class it's needed because you need to get an A, you need to pass the class, get your degree. But then in industry, once you have the device, is anyone actually going to use it? Is it worth it? Is there a cost benefit to it? That's the biggest challenge now, is understanding, all right, we built this off of a need that we understood pretty well in the class, but now you're actually diving deeper and connecting with many people across the country, across the world, and understanding, is this an actual problem? And that kind of leads from a challenge to an opportunity, in my opinion, because then you can also pivot and change your product based off more opinions, more than you were required in senior design.
So now I want to kind of ask you guys a more personal question. So how did you know that you wanted to be a leader?
So I think, I mean, I didn't initially, right? I think you know, for me personally, it's been just a journey. that, you as you gain experience, you have ways that you are individually successful. But really, ultimately you're only really successful, at least in industry and in this industry, if your team is successful, if you have a product that comes out of the market and that, you're able to sell and you're able to advance the healthcare of patients or, save people's lives. And so, I think the biggest impact that you can have is by then in turn helping other people do their jobs successfully in order to make that happen. And so, as a leader, your job is to make sure that the people that you're leading, that they're able to do their jobs and that they know kind of which direction to be marching and what they're doing it for. And so for me, it's just a good way of sort of magnifying your impact is by leading those people. And yeah, you can continue, being an engineer with your head down and doing hard work and really contributing at a high level and obviously making big contributions. But when you're leading people, at least from my opinion, you have the opportunity to do that and then magnify it again across, all those people that you're leading, assuming you're a good leader. And then if not, then you're probably, your magnification can be by a fraction as well.
Yeah, that's a good question as well, because I originally didn't start as the leader in my group project. It was something that I did want to focus and just be an engineer that just focused on the technical aspect of it. But then as the semesters kept going through our senior design, I started thinking about ways that I would implement change, the way I would lead the project. And then also thinking further on just how would I do things, right? And then taking that risk and becoming the leader it's a risk as well, because you could be a good leader or a bad leader. And I'm still learning if I'm a good or bad leader as well. Only into it a few years. But it's important to also not like micromanage your team as well. And that's something that is very easy as a leader to do sometimes, and understanding, like you mentioned earlier, your role in leading that team is very important. And just being, like I keep mentioning this, but just being passionate, right? If you don't love what you're doing, if you don't love the people you're surrounded by, then you probably shouldn't be leading them. But if you are surrounded by the amazing people that have common goals, and it just makes leading so much easier, because even though you are the leader, I still see my team as 50-50 or 20% across 5 members, right? We're always equal, but someone just needs to be the person that speaks for everyone, gets the message across.
One other comment, I guess, just thinking about it a little bit more, unless you're, working in a garage by yourself, really on an island as a true individual contributor, I would challenge anybody probably to not be a leader. You know what I mean? I think there are, to your point, there are good leaders and there are bad leaders, but to some extent, everyone is leading. And your influence has an impact on the people that are around you, positively or negatively. And so I think, as even, when you join a company, the people that you're working with, I think, they're going to observe how you behave, what knowledge you have, and they're going to take, positive or negative cues from that. And so your ability to lead isn't because you're granted some title and, kind of your leadership is bestowed upon you. It's because, you're doing things that are, positively influencing those people that are around you. And they're then in turn going to follow you. So I think hopefully everybody in this room will have the opportunity to lead one way or the other, even, when you leave this room.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, can I just finish it off? Yeah, specifically to the students, I wanted to say, be a leader, take those risks. Even if you're not the leader in your current senior design team or the project that you're working on, go out there and test the product, right? Go in the student competitions, go to the events like this at the Launchpad, start exposing yourself to different people, different environments, and understanding how to communicate, and then also pitching your product, and just get out there, because you never know what can happen. My team and I, we went out there, we started winning a few competitions, started getting some funding, and that just started snowballing, and now we're trying to ride that snowball until it gets into a big company. So just take those risks, be a good leader, and go for it.
All right, so in your best Twitter post, 80 characters or less, what is the takeaway message that you have for the audience on your journeys from on your career to leadership?
Just be a good team player, be cooperative.
Stealing this from Nike, but just do it.
Great, that was 8 characters, perfect, we're good to go. All right, so thank you all very much, great panel.
Thank you.